Hello and welcome everyone to part 3 of our 5-part series relating to 5 conversations, the key to transforming trust, engagement and performance at work. Our best-selling book and programme here at the Oxford Group. So just by way of introduction, my name's Andy Dent. I'm one of the directors here at the Oxford Group, and I've got the pleasure of working with a fantastic team of people to serve up great content and programs that help leaders to support their teams to transform trust, engagement and performance. And there's no program that does that better, in my opinion, than our 5 Conversations program. So it's a pleasure to have you with us today. I'm also joined by Maggie. So over to you, Maggie.
Thank you very much, Andy, and welcome everybody. I'm Maggie, as Andy has pointed out, Associate Director here at the Oxford Group. I'm a facilitator, a coach, and almost as passionate about 5 Conversations as Andy is. I'm just really happy to be here to share this with you. I love connecting and understanding clients and the challenges that you are experiencing out there in the real world, and finding a way to support you. So great to be sharing Conversation 3. I can't believe we're on 3 already, Andy.
Time flies. So just an opening question. Conversation 3 is all about showing genuine appreciation. So what is so important about appreciation, particularly in the workplace? So Maggie, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, well, I think when I first started sort of understanding the concepts around 5 Conversations, I've been on the journey of the book and its development over the years. But one of my favorite phrases from this is about catching people doing things right, and I think that's what genuine appreciation is about. It's about noticing when somebody does something, it's done well, and then it's telling them it's done well and going deeper about why and the what's of why it's gone well. So, and that just really helps an individual with their development, raises their awareness. It's got so many benefits.
Absolutely. And there's a couple of ways that we do it, and we'll get into that in a bit. But there is the spontaneous, when you spot it in the moment and you're able to share some appreciation in the right way for that person. But there's also the conversation, because we're not next to people all the time nowadays, if we ever were, depending on our roles. But certainly the workforces are far more dispersed than they've been before. And that doesn't mean that great work isn't happening. It just means we don't see it as much. So therefore, there's a space for this planned conversation where we can really dig into what has been going well for someone, because we don't have to have seen it. We just have to get people to reflect on it. And hopefully that will come out as we get into the conversation today.
Yeah, and I was for me, it's about there's a lot of people doing great stuff in our teams, in our organizations, in our companies, and I sometimes call it unconscious competence. They do great stuff and they don't really always know why they're good at what they're doing. And particularly I think this is true of people who are new to the organization, new to the team, or haven't had a lot of opportunity to reflect, to think about their skills and strengths. So one way of raising people's consciousness about why they're good at what they're good at is through this showing genuine appreciation. So it brings those benefits to individuals. It's a demonstration of commitment to development, actually, as that last little box tells us.
Absolutely. And there's an interesting reflection that I've got from delivering this program with clients. I generally always ask the question, do you feel you give enough appreciation to your people? And most of the time people say, yeah, I give a lot of appreciation to my team. I'm pretty good at this, actually. And then I ask another question, which is, how much appreciation do you feel that you get? Do you get enough? And the answer to that question is very often, no, I don't feel I get enough. And we're in the fortunate position sometimes to work with leaders and managers in organizations, and what they think they are giving to their people, sometimes they're not. And that might be because internally they really value and appreciate the work that their team or people are doing. They just don't vocalize that, or they don't vocalize in a way that it really seeps in. Particularly with humble people, you say, oh, well done for that piece of work. And sometimes that doesn't really get deep enough for it to be accepted as a piece of appreciation. So there's something about, as we always say, going a bit deeper
Yeah.
so that people really get that.
And I think that piece, just that point you made about do we do it enough? Yes. Do we get it enough? No. And actually, I genuinely believe that people think they're doing it more than they are. So I was with my team. We were with the team last week, Andy. We had an all company team event, and I was thinking about conversation 3, and I tried not to say to people that was a really good presentation, because that feels like job done. I've told them now. But I made myself just take some extra time and go a little bit deeper. That was a really good presentation because the slides were really engaging, because you captured the audience. So just take it that little bit step further beyond the well done, and it's a practice like everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, interestingly, with this particular conversation, it's one of those ones that when you deliver some appreciation to someone, very often they're waiting for where's the feedback? Where's the thing I've done wrong then? And there's something sacred about holding a space that is just to share some appreciation. So that from a neuroscience perspective creates these move towards experiences, so that not every time do you grab one of your team and say, have you got 5 minutes? They think it's going to be something bad. Actually, if you do it enough in the right way, they might think, actually, I've got some stored memory here that says this could be good. So the intention to go into that conversation in a more upbeat fashion is there.
Yeah, that's nice, Andy. Let's move on and have a look at some of the ways of doing this.
Let's do it. Right, so conversation 3, showing genuine appreciation. So this particular conversation is centered on the foundation of appreciative inquiry. And appreciative inquiry has got its roots in organizational development. It's a school of thought that wherever possible in organizations, if we're encouraged to focus on the good stuff, the strengths, the things that have gone well, as opposed to what is relatively traditional, and the go-to is to look at what's gone wrong or what needs to be fixed. If we're on the appreciative inquiry side of things and we're strengths focused, that positivity can grow and create movement within organizations. Now, I am a realist. I know that the traditional deficiency conversations need to happen, but wouldn't it be nice every now and again if there was just that sacred space that we referred to earlier, just to hold a space to talk about what's gone really, really well and how we could maybe do more of that. So that's the backdrop to what this conversation is based in. And we know that it has a huge impact on people if they're getting enough appreciation within their roles. The 2 different ways you can do that. One is spot it in the moment, and show some spontaneous appreciation. And we've got, I wouldn't say a model, but an approach to doing that to make sure that it really registers that you appreciate that individual, why you appreciate them, and what is it that the outcome of whatever they've done well has led to. And then the second piece to this is the planned conversation. So the piece where we encourage people to reflect on what's gone well for them. So it's almost a coaching style conversation to bring out of them and understand what's gone really well, to explore that a bit deeper and look at where they can use it more, and then to get them to do some nice reflection on that particular skill or strength they've shown and where else they can use it. So there's 2 core ways that we can use this conversation. We're going to dive in firstly to the planned conversation around showing genuine appreciation, and then we'll look at spontaneous. So you'll see on the screen here the kind of three core phases. One is the understanding phase, second is the exploration, and third is the consolidation phase. In the understanding phase, really what we're getting people to center on is, tell me about something that's gone really well for you recently. And that could be, sometimes it's easy to give them a bit of a time frame. So what's gone really well in the last 2 months for you, or the last 3 months, 6 months, whatever period you're focused on, or even in the last week. That can be a good place to start. We then want to delve into, well, what was the outcome? What were the strengths that you showed? How did you feel about it in terms of the output of the program? What were the specific things that you needed to do to get it to the point of it being a success? So we're digging into what was really going well and the strengths in terms of skills and behaviors that someone might have contributed within that. What that opens up is a space, and I find every time I have these conversations, without doubt, there is always more that's happened and more effort and energy that someone's put into an outcome than I've realized, because I'm not stood next to them, and they're putting more of their energy in than I ever could notice. So I always find there's just this really natural space that is kind of a realization and an opportunity to thank them for their efforts, and specifically thank them for the efforts that they've made in the specific areas that are prominent. The next phase of the conversation is about exploring their strengths. So what we want to do is say, well, look, you've shown these great skills and behaviors here. Where else could you use that within your current role or within the organization? Or are there any projects that you feel that you could utilize your skills? And there's a couple of great things that come out of that. One is real positive reinforcement. It opens up opportunities to stretch, to challenge, and to play to people's strengths. But also it probably opens up potential thoughts around talent pipeline and where those people could be deployed in terms of future roles or shifts and changes within the organization, if that were relevant. And then the final section is all about consolidation. So this is about the key insight that they have taken from the conversation. So we ask that really nice coaching question. What is the key reflection you've taken from this conversation? And we create the space, which is difficult sometimes because you don't want to jump in and say what you've taken from the conversation. The point here is to get them to reflect on the strengths that they've shown. So it's a real moment for positive reinforcement. So if you're anything like me, there's something about just holding back a space of silence to let people go there. Sometimes you need to help them, but just giving them that space to go there. So that's our planned conversation. The spontaneous conversation is relatively straightforward. What we want to do is we want to call out what we've seen. So what is the great work that you've seen them do? And why does that matter to you as their leader or their colleague? And why does it matter to the organization? So we want to be quite specific on I just saw you on a client call, and do you know what? I was really impressed with the level of detail. You got into the conversation about the problem that client's trying to fix. You really understood and asked some great questions, created some space for them to reflect. And then you were able to think about the ways that we could add value to support them, not always in paid work, but some of the tools that we've got that can add even more value. That made me really proud of the stuff that we do here at the Oxford Group. And I know that created a great customer experience. So thank you for that. So that's the type of way that you might want to share some spontaneous appreciation. Now, there's two watch outs on that. Extroverts and introverts, well, and this isn't a sweeping generalization. It might not always be this way, but some people will really appreciate that being called out in front of a group. And some people will shrivel up into a ball and really not want to go there, or find it hard to accept appreciation in that larger forum. So know the individual that you're going to be giving the appreciation to. Think about where they'd best accept it, whether it's in the office or on a Teams call if it was virtual, or whether it was just taking them to one side or just calling them individually on Teams or whatever virtual platform you're operating from. So those are our two models for showing genuine appreciation. So we are now going to jump into a live conversation. So Maggie is going to give it a go, getting me into some planned appreciation. So
I am. Thanks, Sandy. I knew this was my instruction to come and join and have this conversation. When you introduced this earlier, I thought it was my turn. That's hence why I joined in and put on my camera, but here I am. So, so Andy, what I want to do is just ask you the question that we think is a powerful starter for this showing genuine appreciation. So, can you tell me or talk to me about something that's going well for you at the moment?
Right. So I've got a couple of choices. to talk about, but I think the one I'm going to go with is I don't know what I can call this, but it's something about holding space. So at the back end of last year, heading into Christmas, I thankfully had a few weeks off and I created a little bit of space to think about what are the key things I need to do next year. Not a New Year's resolution as such, but a reflection on what I need to be better at. And what I've done, and one of those things was creating space just to think, not to be on my emails or even writing a list, just a space, just to mull things over and try to make sure I'm focused on the right things and the things where I can add the most value, and also how I can make sure I achieve as best as possible. And I know this is difficult to do, but balance in the key areas of life, so work and home and other areas as well. So I've built in this block of time to kind of do that on 3 days of the week, just for half an hour, where I'm calling it blackout time. So no one can put anything in my, hopefully no one can put anything in my diary.
So it sounds like it's working, because you sound proud of it. Just hearing you talk about it, Andy. So it sounds like it's working. So how are you making it work?
So we're only 3 weeks into January, so it's working so far. I think because of the outputs it's given me, I think I've probably been focused on more of the right areas. Despite it being a really busy January, I've managed to say no to some things that previously I think I would have just said yes to. Or not said no completely, but maybe negotiate a different space that they fall into the work pattern or activity plans. So I think it's worked from that perspective so far.
Okay, so you're saying no more. You're holding the space. You sort of, and have you let any of it go yet? Have you been pretty? Have you pretty 100% success rate on it?
Yes, but I was really challenged before this call because something cropped up that really I could do with seeing to tomorrow morning in my 30-minute blackout time. And I'm not going to, because it's not the end of the world if it shifts by half an hour. But what would happen if I did say yes to it? I would lose that thinking time.
Okay. Well done. That's I know that. What strengths do you think you're using, Andy, to sort of to allow that to be?
This is why this is always so good, because it makes you think. So there's something about commitment to what I know is really important that I've tried to do in different ways and it hasn't worked. So I've, in my little note in my calendar, I can't remember the exact wording, but it says something like, if you break this commitment to yourself, you're a fool. It doesn't say it in that many words, but essentially that's what it means. And also it's got a note in there for others. You know, if you're asking me to do that, then you're going to be potentially causing an issue downstream where I'm not as productive for you as a member of the team. So there's a clear message in there. So I think there's a bit of communication internally. I haven't made a big thing about it, but it's in the diary. So if anybody looks at it, it's there.
So the strength is about sticking to a commitment you've made to yourself. There's the ability to communicate that commitment to others in a way that, so it sounds like you haven't done a wholesale, right, everybody, this is what I'm doing, but you're sort of doing that informally when it's necessary and it's needed. And are there skills? What sort of their strengths? Are there any skills that you're using that you that are serving you well in helping you do this?
I think there's probably a little bit of negotiation, a bit of prioritization, because I've noticed that things will come in and someone will want a meeting at that time, or I'm thinking, I can't quite fit it in because I've got the blackout time in there. So I'm needing to say to them, okay, when do you really need this by? What's the timeline on it? If we pushed it to next week, would that be okay? Would that still work? So there's a bit of negotiation there in a low level type of way, and very often, and in every occasion, everyone's been like, "Yeah, it's fine to do it next week," which is interesting, isn't it? An
Yeah.
interesting reflection there. So
What's
yeah,
apparently urgent can be
can
negotiated
wait.
if
Mm,
you put it out there,
yeah,
and have that conversation.
yeah.
So I mean, you sound energized, so that's my understanding of how you're feeling about it. But how are you? How are you feeling when you're doing it?
Yeah, I think feeling energized and feeling more. I think my clarity of decision making has been better in
Hmm.
the last 3 weeks, despite, as you know, Maggie, it being a really busy time
Yeah.
internally, particularly last
Hmm.
week, and all the lead up to a big event that we had internally. So, despite that, I think my clarity of decision making has been better, and that is something, to be celebrated, really, I
Hmm.
guess.
Hmm. So that the space you're carving out is giving you the
Mm,
time to think, which is having that knock-on effect on the clarity of decision making.
yeah.
Okay. So I guess we've talked about some of the skills and strengths that you're using: communication, saying no, commitment, negotiation, prioritization. Did you know you were doing all this, Andy, in this little example? So in the true spirit of appreciative inquiry, where else might you be able to use some of those skills if you're just sort of looking ahead to other things that are coming your way?
So one of the things I have thought with this, and it extends a little bit beyond me, I suppose, is to the team, the wider
Hmm.
team here at the Oxford
Hmm.
Group, the direct team that I'm part of, and encouraging people to find their own blackout time or whatever they want to call it in
Hmm.
relation to just creating this space. There's something there that actually it could spread to others, and I think it would be helpful. Who out of us in the modern world couldn't do with a bit more space?
Hmm.
So there's something about that, and there's something in the whole regaining of your diary. That's not fully thought through, but it's been eye-opening how
Hmm.
much stuff doesn't need to happen at the time that people are putting it in.
Hmm.
So there's something in that, how am I managing my diary more widely that could
Hmm.
flow from this, I think.
So enabling others to do some of what you're
Yeah.
doing. Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. But Andy, we're coming to the end of our little allotted time for this. So can I ask you? Well, I'm not even asking permission. Can I ask you what? Just thinking about, and I know you're a reflector, so this may not pop into your head immediately, but is there a key insight? What is the key insight, or the one thing that you have gained from our discussion here?
I think the thing I've gained from it, Maggie, is the importance of sticking with it,
Hmm.
because I haven't really had the space to sit, although I've had space, ironically, but I haven't had the space or necessarily the questioning to really dig deep to think about the impact that it's made.
Hmm.
And it has made a positive impact. So there's something about really sticking with it. And that's the hardest thing with these things,
Hmm.
isn't it? Sticking with it. So my biggest takeaway is actually there's been some great results from this. So don't let it go.
Yeah, yeah. And back to I know one of your favorite uh, theories or areas is about habits. The
Mm,
minute if you do it
yes.
enough, it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're well on the road to it becoming a habit for you.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. So
Fab.
I
Thank you,
guess
Maggie.
just reflecting on that conversation, one of the things I was consciously doing, just as an explanation, was reinforcing, sending some positive vibes Andy's way and reinforcing some of his achievements. I hope you felt those,
You did.
Andy.
Yeah, I did. I did. It felt genuine. So I think the
Mhm.
interesting thing, Maggie, I was thinking about this as we flowed through. I wonder if Maggie's going to say well done, but actually you didn't need to, because you were sending other signals about, that were coming through to me.
Mhm.
So whilst that space in this model is there to show appreciation, sometimes it's about doing it in the right way.
Yeah, you
Um,
don't need to overdo it.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Good.
Okay. So having seen that live and the outcomes that can come from it, and that was a quick, what was that, 5 minutes, Maggie?
Yeah,
Something like
5 or 6 minutes, I think.
five,
Yeah.
6 minutes. It could be a bit shorter. I've done these in a couple of minutes with people. Sometimes it might be a bit deeper if you're looking at a project. So what holds us back from having what can be a really positive impact on our people? So here's just a few thoughts of the reasons that we see that people don't go there with it. So Maggie, what's your key thoughts on why people don't go there?
Yeah, I think one of the big ones, a lot of the time I'm hearing now, Andy, about people saying, because of hybrid working, I'm not seeing people as much. I'm not seeing them do their jobs. They're not in front of me. And I think it can be a big, people are seeing it as a barrier to showing genuine appreciation. But actually, the reality of this is that it's not, you're generating the feedback, if you know what I mean. I didn't know you were doing your blackout days. I haven't seen you do it. I've not done it. I've not been involved. But so the technique of appreciative inquiry allows you as an individual to share the feedback with yourself. And my job is to make you aware of it and bring it into your consciousness in terms of the skills and strengths that you're using, and to reinforce that. So I think that's probably one of the big barriers, but actually I'm just kicking the barrier down because I don't think it has to exist.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I always find with this one is I always find that this conversation feels a bit counterintuitive. Because sometimes you think, well, at work, can't we just give people feedback and tell them where they need to improve and not focus on where they do great stuff. And I'm paraphrasing massively there, but there's something about feeling awkward about digging into some of the great stuff. From both perspectives. So you might feel awkward as a leader going into this conversation because it feels a bit different. And the other person might feel a bit awkward because they're like, oh, well, I don't quite know where to go with this. And people very often deflect and they talk about the great efforts of the team rather than their own great efforts. So there's a skill in bringing that across. And I think that awkwardness comes from a place of maybe it feeling insincere, that you've been on a management training course, you've brought back a shiny tool, and you're just having this conversation with me. Whereas actually, I think creating this space creates such a powerful dialogue just to listen and to step back. And obviously we know time is going to be another barrier. People will quote time as being a challenge, but you've seen the difference you can make in 5 minutes.
Yeah, and even less than 5 minutes, because I mean that effectively was a plan. It was kind of spontaneous, but it was planned. You can even make it even shorter with the technique that you talked about, the spontaneous, where you share your own experience and of what you saw, felt, experienced. So, and that can be 30 seconds. It doesn't need to be a long, convoluted conversation, although it's powerful when it is. So it's making time for both of those things.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think we're nearly out of time. So I guess the closing thought. Firstly, thank you for joining us. But there's great conversations. So good luck catching people in rather than catching people out. And if you want to stay in touch with us at the Oxford Group, you can dive on our website, sign up for our newsletter to get access to all of our latest events. Or you can follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter, where we post things about events or thought leadership content as well, or get in touch with us via our website. But thank you everyone for joining, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.